Here we are with another episode of the Excellent Leadership Podcast. We're back from celebrating our 1-year anniversary. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. And today I'm joined with Matt Rogers, and we are going to interview Danita Johnson, President of Business Operations at DC United of Major League Soccer. Danita's career spans from minor league basketball to the WNBA, the NBA, and now MLS, where she's helping shape the future of one of the league's original clubs. We dive into her early experiences growing up in military communities, the lessons she learned from working in minor league sports before getting major league budgets, and what it means to manage up, how to balance vulnerability with high performance, and why leadership is not always about having all the answers. It is about knowing how to listen, adapt, and empower others. If you're passionate about purpose and team culture, this episode is for you. Thanks, Danita. Here we go. So, Danita, I'm going to open up with a broad question. Answer it however you want to answer it. Who is Danita Johnson?
Well, I think there's two parts of me. There's the work part of me that goes and shows up in my office every day. And I think there's a part of me that's at home every day. And I think the worker in me is she's a builder. She's a connector. I absolutely love the power of sports and what we get to do and how we build community through sport. And that's something that really keeps me going every single day. And so I think that is a definite piece of me. And I think the home version of me is one that absolutely loves my family, loves the opportunity to get time with them and with my friends and explore the world. And so I think when I put those two together, you get who I am between my day-to-day and my personal life.
Your family loves sports as much as you do?
I think they do.
When did you connect to sports? When did that first enter your life?
It was early on. You know, I grew up in a house I spent most of my time with my dad and my brother, and they both were deep into sports. The NFL theme song on Sunday is what woke me up. If we weren't going to church that Sunday, that's how I got up in the morning.
I love that.
So that was definitely like the intro to it was that. And for me, growing up, we were in the military. My dad served over 20 years in the military, and we were a family that sports, no matter where we went, is how we built and connected to community. And so I think it is reflective in my work every day.
So where did you live growing up? How many different spots?
I was the last born, so I didn't get all the good spots. Like my sister got Italy and other good places, but I lived in Germany.
Where?
We lived in Würzburg, Germany, where there's a military base, and then spent some time in different parts of North Carolina growing up.
What a cool experience.
Yeah.
How did that shape you into who you are today? What would you say?
I think part of the shaping there was I grew up in very diverse environments from a young age. Especially on like a military base, you get the option of living with kids that have lived around the world or from different places. So even my high school was like a melting pot. And so I think it really helped me understand diversity at a young age. Even being a Black woman, being a space where you have Asian and white kids and, you know, kids from South Africa, wherever it may be, right? A variety. That really helped me think about and understand the world differently from the very beginning.
And so different than a lot of Americans who didn't have that type of international experience growing up. I grew up in a small suburb in Marietta, Georgia, and like that's all I knew until I became an adult. I mean, that was my entire world. And you don't fully recognize how large and then you come to sports. Your athletes are from all over the world.
Absolutely.
And to have some empathy for what it might be like for a Portuguese guy and his wife to come move to DC and to try to put down roots and to fit into society. You've gone through that.
Yeah. And I think being in the industry over the years, moving from city to city, you know, I've lived lots of places over the years, has taught me that. And I think I learned that early on in college that I went to school in the middle of nowhere. And it was like, guess what? You can make any place good. It's a decision that you get to make. And sports and traveling from market to market, you find commonalities amongst people, right? And sports is a connector of people. And you start to see, you know, this has a way to tell stories. It has a way to drive engagement and also do good. Right. And that was part of what I started to see. No matter where I went, that became the power of this.
So why did you choose a career in sports?
I chose a career in sports because I felt like it was one of the ways in which I could have impact. Not often in your work every day do you really get to wake up each day and be like, you know what? I get to change something. I get to make somebody's day a little bit brighter. And I feel like sports does that. Even when your team loses, you go on these emotional highs and lows, right? But you're in it. And you're in it with a community. You're in it with a community of fans. And I think sports has this way of, like, it gives you surprise. It gives you entertainment. It gives you joy. It gives you sadness. It really fits on all the emotions in a lot of different senses for us. And, like, I get to help create that space for people. right? And I get to be a part of that and be a part of the change and the evolution of that, specifically now as our industry is quickly changing. It's really a lot of fun for me.
So looking back at the beginning, and forgive me, I did a bunch of research digging into your past, Danita. I saw an article that someone interviewed you, and like they was talking about how your first internship was with a minor league team. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you kind of talked a little bit about how you got this internship with the minor league team. You had a lot of friends around you that were like getting internships with like professional teams. And I would love for you to expand on kind of that whole story of that. What did you learn in that made you want to continue forging on? Now you're a president of an MLS club starting in minor leagues, and that's really kind of where you got your beginning.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact interview, but I know the story that you're talking about. And for me, starting in that minor league, and like what you're saying is like a lot of my friends, they went to the NBA teams first, right? In that minor league, it gave me a view of things where I wasn't necessarily in a specific department or a silo. And it taught me the foundational work that had to be done for a team to be successful. When you learn how to operate and build a business with a lot of nothing, and you know, with these minor league teams, you don't have much to work with. But what you do find is you find the ability to adapt. You find the ability to be resilient in the work. And for me, that's what it taught me. It also gave me purview that I had access to the team president, right? I had access to the lead of marketing at a young age and had conversations and dialogue because we were a unit. You know, we were a small and mighty team to move the business forward. And so it really taught me early, like I got exposed in a way that I think sometimes when you first go into a major league team, you're really focused on that task at hand. And I had the exposure of, yes, my task at hand, but I had exposure to many other areas of the business at a young age. And I think it really opened my eyes up and helped me to understand it was part of like, oh, I really enjoy this. And this is something that I want to be a part of.
Is that why you got the itch to go into the G League? And then, you know, you were in the WNBA when it wasn't, frankly, as big as it is now, right? Like, is that what got you the itch to be in more entrepreneurial type of roles and be a builder?
Yeah, I think that's where my building started, right? That's exactly it. Like having that from the very beginning, realized I didn't have to walk into a finished product, right? Or a semi-finished product, because we're always making our businesses better. But I was okay going into roles that were for me to build and for me to kind of work from the ground up and put the pieces together. And part of why I like that part of the work, and it's been a trend of mine in my career, is because it gives me to build opportunity to build systems, put systems in place that really can have an everlasting effect on the business and the industry. I think at the time in which I entered the WNBA, it was around 2007 when I first went into the W. I remember being like, oh, this is going to set me apart. And that's how I perceived that opportunity. It wasn't about, oh, I need to be, you know, only doing the Suns work because I was at the Mercury at that time. And I knew the opportunities were there for me for both. But I was like, oh, if I can do this, I can do anything. And it was such a different time. And so I think absolutely it is part of the nature of what I found success in. Now, do I always have to be a builder? It's a part of me. Absolutely. But I think where I've also evolved, you know, with DC United is that I have a chance now to go beyond just a building stage, right? And what's been a lot of fun is accelerating past that. It's stabilization, it's growth, it's innovation, and really taking DC United and this entire, you know, system of MLS as we get to be a part of that to the next level.
You bring up just interesting points. As I look at careers, you have some who went to very large organizations first, and oftentimes large organizations know what excellence looks like. They have the budget and resources to have excellence. You usually don't have much visibility or proximity to the decision makers if you start your career in a large organization. So there's a trade-off. Or you go to like a minor league or a startup. A downside might be you're under-resourced and you might not be working at the most excellent of levels because perhaps the organization can't do it that way. But you get proximity and visibility to how the decision makers and leaders operate. And it's not uncommon in the world of sports or business at large, where some very highly productive senior executives started in small organizations and got to see how the entirety of the organization worked. Then in many cases, they figure out what they're good at and what they want to do. Because at college, like you might think you want to do marketing, you get into an organization like, I actually don't like marketing. It's almost too late, right? When you go to a big company. But in small companies, you've got the ability to just pick up new responsibilities and new tasks along the way.
And I think that's been part of the beauty of my career is I think I've played in both spaces, right? From working at the Phoenix Suns and the Mercury, which is still a high level organization, to working at the Clippers, to working in the G League and helping start a WNBA franchise. There's been variety. And I think that variety of seeing, like, I remember going back after being at the Sparks for a while and I went to go work for the Clippers and I was like, oh, I forgot what it felt like to have good resources. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you remember, you're like, and it's not that we didn't have the same resources, right? And you're like, oh, well, it makes you value them even more. Right. So when you have an opportunity for resource, I think it makes me even more strategic in those moments because I don't want to waste the opportunity for resource. So I think for me in that, it's like, if you have me managing your P&L, you're like, oh, this is good because she's been with and without. And so I want to make sure we maximize the opportunity in both areas. And that's one of the things I think the balance in between the two has really taught me. And something I encourage for people to understand that you can be well-resourced, but you can be thoughtful and strategic in how you move a business forward.
We see it a lot in chief marketing officer type of roles, where if you're talking to someone from outside of sport, and often great talent is outside of sport to come in, but in some cases they're managing a $20 million or $200 million marketing budget for big companies, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Samsung, et cetera. And then you're talking to them about the MLS team or the Major League Baseball team. What's the marketing budget? No, $300,000. $1 million, right? To somewhere like, what? That's one campaign. It's like, yeah, go learn how to do owned media and earned media. It's a bit different.
Yes.
Go figure it out.
Like we have different assets. They're called players. They're called a facility, like our stadiums. And you have to maximize those assets and those opportunities. And I think it does take creativity to be able to do that.
So you've been in your role for a few years now. What's something you wish you would have known walking into your first like big president of an MLS team job?
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily something I wish I would have known. I think I'm almost grateful for not knowing certain things. I think about it in a way that when I take roles, part of my personal is to be able to grow within them, right? Obviously, stepping into a role, there's going to be things I don't know, right? But I think for me, stepping into this role, I knew there was going to be things I didn't know, and I was okay with it. But I also knew it gave me an opportunity to grow. And so I think for me, when it came to this, it was really taking on the stadium aspect, and overseeing our stadium was a big piece of this. It was also thinking about...
I was at it the other day, by the way.
I heard.
I had so much fun. I didn't see your match. I saw Spirit, but what a great venue.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we've continued to evolve that, right? We've been able to do some renovations in the stadium. We've been able to grow a concert business and other aspects. So it was things I hadn't really touched before. And so I was okay not knowing them. I was okay knowing I was going to learn. And I think for me, I'm always curious. I'm always going to be, whether it's reading Boardroom or Fast Company, I'm always watching the market. I want to know where innovation's coming in. I want to know sports, culture, music, how it's coming together. And so for me, I felt comfortable not knowing what I didn't know. And a lot of people, may not feel that same way, but I was like, this is why you do it. I feel good about what I've been able to learn through this experience. I feel like I'm a stronger leader because of it. I'm helping a league grow. There was a lot of similarities where I saw the W and MLS kind of meet, and the opportunity to grow the world's game in the U.S. at the magnitude of which is possible is something that excites me every day.
I would love to dissect that comfortability aspect of what you just mentioned. Like, what is giving you that comfort level? Is it you just knowing that you're going to figure it out? I know I don't know it, but I know how to figure it out. Or is it having the right owner? Is it having the combination of both? Is it having the right culture in place? Like what brings you that comfort ultimately?
I think my comfort lies in never being afraid to fail, right? And you take these big jobs and it's tough, right? You're like, I am against, the pressure, right? Yeah. But it goes back to like knowing who you are and knowing that every single time I have a chance, I know how to show up, right? And I can't be afraid to make mistakes. I can't be afraid to fail in it. And so it gives me a sense of comfort to go in knowing that I'm going to be okay. Yeah. And that is done through a couple of different things. It's being proactive by making sure I have the right team around me and what I'm building from a team standpoint. Working and building my relationship with the ownership group is absolutely critical for that, and building their confidence. And I think knowing they don't need to be confident in me walking in the door. They're going to have a sense of confidence because they hired you, right? But like I earn that from them every single day. And I am one that believes in having the right team, building proactively with them, and the relationship with my owners can help to uplift that, because if we're all working together for the common good to push the organization forward, we have an option to succeed. And that's where I find my comfort in knowing that I know how to operate with people. Right. And that I've practiced year over year, day to day. And I'm intentional about that. And I think that is part of what has helped me through my career.
And I would have to say that that's probably what you think is one of your superpowers, only because as we talked about earlier, you've seen every aspect of the organization.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're building culture, the arrow that you take out of your metaphorical quiver at, engaging your marketing team is going to be different than how you engage your tech team and your stadium team. And so when you came into the organization, were you creating culture, creating the culture that you, your owner, but most importantly, you wanted to ensure that you built to achieve that comfort, to achieve that success?
Yeah. And I think for me, it was really about, and I talked a little about systems earlier, right? I think systems matter.
Yeah.
People need process. I don't have kids yet, but we always talk about how kids enjoy structure. I feel like structure works really well in the workplace. Structure with room to be creative is important. So I think building systems and processes and procedures was one of the foundational things that I tried to do from the very beginning. And I do that through consistency and communication, right? We have to be consistent in how we're working with our teams on it, communicating with them well about it, having them involved in the process so they understand it, and building a strong leadership team that can also communicate. Because one thing is, I don't always need to be in the room to have the same consistent message. Right. And if you really have buy-in from your staff and your team across that, they can continue to be the voice for that. So I think foundationally for me with that, when coming into DC United it was just trying to build the right systems and processes to make everybody's jobs a little bit easier. Right. And then it gives them room to be creative. Because in the beginning, I think they were just kind of it's like, who does what goes where? Right. And the more that we can kind of create that balance for them, I think the better it was.
One of the studies that I'd like to reference about operations is along the lines of more than 5 out of 10 small businesses fail. But yet when a franchise opens a new location, it's often 9 out of 10 are successful. And it comes down to process and systems, right? The franchise hands you a playbook that says, hey, you want to open a Subway? You want to open a Pizza Hut? This is how you run it. It's not always the good idea. It's not always the great location choice. It's process and systems matter. And sometimes leaders don't take enough time to document how they do things. We have a friend of ours who has just an amazing leadership tree across the NBA. And he shares that the reason he's developed a strong leadership tree is whenever he brings new interns into the organization, they're required to document every single thing he does and then send him their notes at the end of the day. So by the end of their internship, they should know how to operate the way he operates. And not that he expects they go through life operating his way, but before they can make their pivots and changes, at least understand how I did it first.
Exactly.
Such a smart way to build and develop people. I'll give you the roadmap, prove to me you can execute the roadmap, and then you can go do the strategic stuff.
Absolutely. And that's what matters. And I always tell my team when I first came there, I was like, listen, we're going to take this first year and we're going to figure out some things and we're going to put some things in place, but we might adjust them. Right? I have some foundational systems I know to put in place, but we might adjust it because as we learn this business and each other, there's going to be other efficiencies that we might have to create. But if there's a foundational piece to the system, it can create success. A lot of times I think what happens is people are moving so fast and trying to win so quickly, they forget to put the system in place to be able to actually sustain the success. And if you lack that, it won't work. It won't work for long term. And we're really trying to build long-term success here, right? And if you don't take the time and actually pause and make those changes, you're going to be right back at square one within 2 to 3 years very easily.
Yeah, I think you see it a lot on the pitch or on the field where there are some cases, let's use Liverpool Football Club as an example right now, where they had great processes in place. So therefore you can have a manager retire, a new manager come in, and success remains sustained. Yes. Where in some cases, it's just the whole system falls apart. It wasn't documented, or it was documented, but it belonged to me. It didn't belong to the organization. And it takes a really long time for organizations to recover after that.
And that's my intentionality, right? I want to leave any place I am at better than when I came. And for me to do that, I have to leave them with system and process. Like even what we're doing with DC United right now, from our business strategy team and overlaying over the business to our incorporation of Asana and other platforms and tools to create efficiency across us and how we work and create workflows. It matters because one day may not be there, right? And I don't want the business to fail. If it fails after I left, then what did I do? And so I just want to make sure that that's an intentional thing that we do. And I think what's important about that in leadership is the why. Right. And for us, it's so important as leaders. And I know we talk about this next generation coming into the workforce, and they're often asking why. I can't be afraid to answer why. And I think people's fear of answering why is because they can't quite remember why they did it in the first place. Right? Why did they put that system in place? Or was it just there to be there? Why does it actually matter? Right? And I think by us being able to sit down and I can have conversations with my staff and say, this is why we did this. This is why this was put in place, and this is why it matters, helps to kind of break down those walls. But also when implementation comes, there's an understanding, which gives a higher probability for success. And so I think that is one of the things I do try to focus on in the work that we do.
I love that. You talked about managing up earlier. What's some advice you have for managing up to ownership groups to be able to build that trust and that partnership? I guess similarly, like what works well with your direct reports? What makes you enjoy working with them by how they manage up to you?
I think one of the foundational things, and people may not say it often, is listening. Listening to comprehend and truly being able to decipher through what somebody's asking of you. If it's dealing with ownership, really listening to what they're trying to accomplish. We all understand from a revenue perspective that we're supposed to help build the business, right? But listening to how they see that coming to life, what they see coming together. On the flip side for the staff, listening for understanding of, where they may be having issues, where they see their growth, where they see their career, where they understand the business. I think the more that we can listen, the better it is to manage up on all sides. Because if you can then listen, take in what folks are telling you, being able to comprehend that, and then figure out a way in which to bring that back to them, in a form of success, I think it builds connectivity and trust.
How does one learn to listen better?
I think there's a few different ways. One of them would be, and I think this is a practice, right? Imagine you sit and you're having a conversation, let's say with ownership or even a staff member, and you're actually taking note of what they say. One of the things I pay attention to when doing that is watching not only their body movement, where their inflection is on certain points, asking questions back in reference to, can they tell you what's the most important thing of what they just said? Like, what do they value most out of the conversation? If you are able to start to listen and understand that, it's almost like you're selling, right? If you're talking to a partner, this is the same as sales. You're talking to a partner, you need to understand the value of what they're trying to get. How do you deliver it back to them? I think practicing listening is that, taking great note, understanding, asking questions for comprehension, and then making sure you, at the end of that conversation, understand where their values lie and what's high priority. If you can then do that, this is where the next phase comes in. And I think this is a growth in leadership, is saying, okay, how do you strategically help accomplish it? Right? What's the strategy you build around making that happen? And it could be a need of an employee. It's like, they really want to see something else come to life or bring this project to life. How does it flow into the rest of the system? How does it flow into the business? And can you find out why that works with it? I think those are ways that you start to listen better that then can incorporate to the changes that you want to make as a business. I hope that made good sense of what I'm saying there.
Yeah, for sure.
We've talked a lot about like how you got to where you are, but like, what does legacy mean to you? Once you get into the CEO, the number one spot, we love to always just ask, like, what do you want to leave behind? I know you've talked about like leaving processes behind, because if once you leave, you still want it the boat to float.
Yeah.
But like professionally, personally, like what's the legacy you want to leave once you go into the sunset and don't want to work in the sports industry anymore, don't want to work anymore?
I like to don't want to work anymore. I was kidding. I want people to have a love for this similar to mine. And it doesn't have to be the exact, but I want them to find the love for this industry. As much as it has given to me in my life would not be what it is if I did not work in sports, right? I know I live in my purpose every day. And so I just wish for people to find a sense of purpose or growth within this in some capacity, something that impacts their lives in some way. And so for me, from a legacy standpoint, is to be a person that gets to help offer that to somebody, whether they work for us for 6 months or 6 years. I want them to walk away feeling as if they gained something that can be a part of who they are forever. And so my legacy is to impact people, whether it's in our front office, people we work with in the community, our business partners. I love it when somebody always like, if somebody comes up to me and they're just like, I never thought about it in this way. I never understood the power of sport in this way. Like whether it's a community leader, a partner, or an employee, those things matter to me. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a series of small touch points of impacting people that is going to be part of the legacy I leave, because those will be the stories people share.
Yeah. And how does it feel, I think also just being, you're the third female president. You're the first Black president in the MLS, obviously the first Black female president in the MLS. There's got to be a level of, too, being proud of like you being able to show that like this industry doesn't just look like Chad and I. It doesn't look like white male. Like, is there a sense of pride that you have with forging that legacy as well and saying, hey, there's places for people like me as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
At the top.
That is one of the best moments when I'll do an event and like a young woman, specifically a young woman of color, comes up to me and is just like, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
That's super special.
It is.
Yeah.
And so for us, like from my time in the WNBA to even in NBA and MLS, like leaving a better place for women and specifically women of color to feel seen and heard in this industry has to happen. Yeah. I feel like that is part of the purpose of the work. I find it to be special. I take a lot of honor and pride in it. It's why, for me, I want to show up in spaces, not just in sports, whether I'm going to a tech conference or whether I'm spending time at other places outside of sports. Somebody told me one time, they were like, Danita, you're a little bit of everywhere. And I'm like, I have to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because our voices in sport give us an opportunity to not only leverage in this industry, but in other industries because of the cultural relevance of sport, right? Whether there's fashion, other things. I want to be able to show women that we can have access and opportunity where needed.
Yeah. And there's certainly progress too. And what's funny is that we do a lot of work in the women's game, both women's basketball, NWSL, volleyball, et cetera. And you even see it that like even men are wanting to get behind women's sports. And, we've had a lot of male candidates in our women's leagues and women's, teams searches that we've conducted, and then vice versa, right? Like the diversity of our placements and shortlists and just people of color and women getting into men's sports is just, it's not where we want it to be. Obviously, there's still trajectory, but it's getting in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think that's happening. I mean, access is important. Right. And I think the other part that's important, I think our hiring practices have changed across the industry, which is wonderful. And you all get to be a part of that and help to coach executives, help ownership understand what diversity brings. I remember a moment where I was doing a review of a resume and the person necessarily wasn't on paper what we thought we would hire for the role. But there was a sense of creativity and innovation and ability that you felt like they had this energy that I was like, you can figure this out, right? And it was the non-traditional hire. Yeah. And we've all seen that. But they came in and they rocked the role, right? They did a great job, but it was about being open to that and being open to something different than what we see in our industry as standard. And I think when we create more opportunities like that, we have an opportunity to change our sport, change the business aspect, and actually enhance our bottom lines.
Let's stay on that topic for a moment. When do you hire for experience versus hire for capability versus hire for potential?
I think there's a couple of things that play into that. I think timing plays into it and what the need of the business is at the time. Sometimes I feel like the business can be in a place where you're like, I need a win. Like, and you see it, right? People go for a safe hire based on that impact of where it is and where the business sits, depending on the sector, right? I think for me, I'm always open to going outside the lines because I feel like innovation and opportunity based on the person can really accelerate the business too. So I think there's a balance between. To answer your question a little bit more directly, I would say you as a leader have to know what your business can take at the moment. There's times where the business can take, let's say you have a 6-month ramp up versus a 8-week ramp up to something big. You know what I mean? Like that timing, I think, does impact how you hire at times and what the need of your team is, right? Your team could need a very seasoned leader to come in that has a lot of expertise, or you could have a team that's been with you for a while and you're going to change out the leadership, or the leadership has moved on, and you're going to bring somebody in where you know you can have a little bit more creative reign because of the tenure of your team. I think things like that impact like that hiring process of where you play.
It's a good point. I found that organizations need to be honest with themselves about whether they have the ability and time and commitment to training the person they hired for potential. Because if you don't, you might be setting that person up for failure.
Yeah.
Your intentions might have been in a good spot, but you really needed someone with experience in that situation. Or to your point with timing, you probably don't want a first-time head coach and a first-time GM and a first-time CEO all at the same time.
Exactly.
So then you have to look and process and go, okay, we're hiring for potential here, so we need experience over there.
Exactly.
And the team can work together.
And that's where the balance comes in, right? Like if I have a leadership team of 7 and I'm like, all right, 4 of them are vets, I know it, and I got room for 3 on the other side that I can kind of like play with and massage of like, here's where we could potentially hire, or, maybe not standard industry experience, but opportunity. Absolutely.
What have you found works really well in a interview process to make sure you're filtering out people or you're identifying talent you might have overlooked?
Valid examples about the work that they've done, their process of how they executed it, and the results that they've driven are really important to understand. Whether it's in our industry or in another industry, you have to have a good understanding of that and how they got through it. I think sometimes we can look at a result and think that we hire a top person just based on result. But if we don't go in depth about how they got to that result and that process, I think we can miss out, potentially make a wrong hire. And then sometimes if you really get in depth on it, you can make a great hire because you can see how their mind is thinking, how they're getting through something. And for me as a leader, I need to know how you process. I need to know how you're going to move this forward. And if it just seems like they're just throwing it at the wall and they ended up with a great result, that's not going to help us, right? And what role did they play in certain parts, right? Even in the growth of their career. What kind of team player were they in the first part of their career? How did they contribute to projects? How did they help them grow beyond just the result of it? That starts to play into it because, this business, much like most of ours, is not necessarily an individual sport. The business is a team sport. We have to be able to work as a unit, and I need somebody that can come in and do that.
When it comes to onboarding, what have you found is a successful way to onboard someone, to get them to understand culture, to get them to fully understand what their responsibilities are and what's needed within their day-to-day?
I think it starts from the beginning. It starts in the interview process, right? It starts before even then, because in the very beginning, when you're talking with somebody in an interview, you should already be kind of talking about what the culture is about and finding alignment there, right? So that when they come in, they have a better opportunity for success. And so once they're onboarding, I think our HR department and things of that nature have to be in alignment, like what the training processes look like, what type of programs do they have access to, in addition to that, formulating and really building a culture around them of our team to support each other, right? And I say this more from a leadership side, because that's more of what I deal with as we're bringing somebody in, is like, how are we incorporating them into our day-to-day as a leadership, understanding the different department processes, doing one-on-ones, consistent meetings. I'm big on consistent meetings. I think that really helps to build rhythm and cadence. And so that's how
What does that mean, consistent meetings?
So we do like weekly meetings every week. We do stand-ups when necessary around certain projects. We do that so that projects don't get lost. And a lot of times, you're working on something and it's like, oh, who was supposed to do that? Or what happened to that project? And you're sitting there 2 weeks out and you're like, this isn't done yet because you thought that it flowed through. That's what I mean by consistent meetings, like stand-up meeting, project meetings, making sure the workflows are working properly, and that the communication is happening.
How are you? Because obviously when you're at the top, they always say leadership is lonely. And like when you are at the top, sometimes you need kind of your own board of directors that go beyond the walls of your organization. How have you built that professionally over your career? And what advice would you give to people that are just then stepping into the number one spot?
It's 1,000% true that leadership can be lonely. I remember feeling that way about 2 years ago. And I think what happens is we get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget that there are others out there that can help us. And so I believe that it's important to not feel like you're the only one that has the answers, or that you're the only one that should have the answers, is what I would say. That you have to resource people. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable when you don't know. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable when you actually need help. And so for me in resourcing that, it was about having very open dialogue with friends, family members as well, because I think there's a part of this that's the emotional balance to this, but really talking to people around industry and not being afraid to have the conversation. A lot of times I feel like, and specifically as a person of color and a woman, we know what happens if we don't do this well. And we don't really get all the second chances that I could be in this DC United seat and I could fail, as we talked about earlier. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to get a job again like this in the next 6 to 8 months, where somebody else possibly could, right? They could go through it and they can have a bad moment and they can get back up and do that. For me, that may not be the case, right? So for me, what I had to learn in this was it was okay to be vulnerable. And it took a lot of strength to do it, to call folks now and I'm like, how should I be thinking about this, right? How should I, make this change? The vulnerability came from the fact of realizing it's okay that I don't know it all, right? And then when you sit in the rooms with everybody else, you realize everybody doesn't know it all either. And not to have to pretend as if I do. And that gave me the ability to reach out to people outside of even my circle. A lot of people say it's just their board of directors, which people they trust and are super close with. I've called on other leaders at times now that probably 3 to 5 years ago, I would have never, because I just wouldn't have wanted to be exposed in a capacity that I didn't know something. And now I'm like, well, if I don't ask, I don't know.
Yeah.
And more than likely, they may be experiencing similar things.
I would say even we tend to see like vulnerability when it comes to culture is one of the hardest things to create, as Chad likes to say, psychological safety for.
Yeah.
Because people feel like if they're vulnerable, they might be in the crosshairs then, right? How have you been able to promote that type of psychological safety within your organizations?
Yeah.
Even when it comes, sorry to interrupt, but even when it comes to like your direct reports being vulnerable with you at times and being able, and the domino effect of that.
I think it's my vulnerability with them. I lead in that capacity. I don't mind being vulnerable with my team. If I don't know it, I'll tell them. If I'm struggling with something, if I'm having a bad day, they know if I'm having a bad day. And I'll tell them, like, I'm off today. Like, I'm trying, but I'm struggling today, Because what I realize is they come in and tell me the same things now, right? Even if it's like something personal or just having a rough time, they'll come in my office and they talk about it. And they know it doesn't have to go anywhere. And I know that it impacts their day. And we talked about it, I think a little bit before we started. It's like, I can't create a cutthroat culture in a space where I need people to be themselves. I need to give them space to be vulnerable. And I think me doing that and creating that safety by how I showcase it and show up gives them the ability to provide that back to me. So in the work, if a mistake happens, I can't go in there and flip out the next day. Right. Now, if they make consistent mistakes, my team knows, all right, we've done this like 3 or 4 times. This has happened. That's a different thing. But like, I got to give them room to fail too. I got to give room for them to make mistakes and try things. And a lot of times I'm like, you all can own it. Like, let's go. Let's try it and let's figure it out. But I think that's where I try to offer that safety. And you have to consistently tell people it's okay. Because a lot of times you can say, oh, it's safe to make a mistake. You could do this. It's okay. They don't really believe you until they see it in action. So as soon as the moment comes that something goes wrong, how I show up to give them that safety matters, because you truly in that moment live up to your word.
Quick interruption. If you are enjoying the Excellent Leadership Podcast, I have a small favor to ask you. Could you please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review? It helps us grow the Excellent Leadership Podcast community and ensures we keep bringing you top-tier guests, powerful insights, and impactful episodes. Thanks for your support. Now, back to the show. It's a good reminder, isn't it, that soccer is a game of chances. Usually the team with the most shots on goal is the team with the most goals. I coach little boys at the moment. My daughters have retired me from being their coach, but I still have 7-year-old boys. The Viper turtles.
Okay.
It's a hybrid between a snake and a turtle. You won't find anything on Google Images, but ChatGPT can create these for the kids to see. And I try really hard with the kids just to celebrate a shot, right?
Yes.
Just like, do it again. I loved it. Because the parents' response is almost like, right? They wanted it to go in. It's like, you can't give the disappointment in those moments. Otherwise, fear kicks in. I can't take a shot again.
Right.
You have to. And that like, hey, loved that. Do that again. Because it is a game of chances. And you see it in business too play out, right? You need to have people, especially in departments like marketing, take risks.
Absolutely.
And try things. And it's not always going to work.
Exactly.
Not every social media campaign hits.
And it doesn't. And that's the thing. Like, you have to remember that. What you said is so critical, because a lot of times we'll hold one chance on one moment. We have several moments that happen throughout a year. It's okay that everything isn't a win. And most people may not think about it that way, but like, we have to keep shooting the shot. You got to keep going after it, because you're going to get a win in there. And more than likely, we're strategic enough and thoughtful enough. We know the business enough. We're going to get more wins than losses. Right. And you just have to be okay with getting a couple of losses. And once you are, it becomes a lot more fun.
Yeah. And if you have high performers on your team, they're probably more disappointed in their miss than you would ever be.
Let me tell you, they
Which is
take
great.
it rough.
Yeah.
They come in my office, and then we have to do a full debrief, and they're like, and I just feel so bad, and like this didn't happen the way. And I'm sitting there in my head, I'm like, I'm so proud.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so proud. And it's because I'm proud because I know they truly care. Two, I'm proud because I know that I'm like, the next thing they do is going to be great. Right. And then the other part of me, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, that part to me of just them, and they like to go through every moment of it, and they'll decipher it. They'll be like, Danita, okay, so talk me through from beginning to end where you think I messed up at. And that's that's how they'll be like, talk me through where you think I went wrong. And it gives you free range as a leader to actually have that conversation with them. And I'm like, well, probably should have did this a little bit sooner, maybe adjusted that. And they'll be like, did you see that? And I was like, yeah, but I knew you needed to figure it out, not me today. All right. And then they're like, okay. And the next time they do it better. And so that's what starts to happen.
So take me to DC United. Why should people be excited about being a DC United supporter? What are you guys doing cool? What gets you excited about the organization right now?
Yeah, I think for us, and sports as a whole, specifically DCU, this is about not only the 90 minutes of play, it's about everything else that happens around it, right? How are we becoming more fan-centric? What are we doing from an entertainment standpoint? How are we integrating technology? All of those aspects for me right now are a lot of fun. Down the F&B, you see like every year, like the stadium food and beverage across stadiums is like getting more and more like experiential and fun. So for me, it's thinking, okay, the 90 minutes of play that happen, right? I can only control but so much of that. And for us, it's how do we create the entertainment around it? How do we make it a continued destination for the sport, and that when people come in, they'll have an everlasting experience? And that's where the focus is for us.
So what are you doing right now in that sense? What have you done to improve guest experience recently? Or is there a particular sponsorship campaign that you just are really proud of? Brag on the organization.
Sure. Happy to. I think one of the things that we recently did, this was actually last year, we worked on how we streamline our entry process into the stadium. So we had and I know it sounds so nerdy, but I love it, as we reduced the entry time into our stadium so fans could actually get into the building quicker. And we did that through how we changed our scan and our scan-in process, everything. So that's just like the nerdy side of me of what I love. And
so
I think,
important though.
Right? But
like
the fans love it.
It's a make or break.
Right. It's one of the things they don't necessarily think about, that then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that was easy. Right. So I think that was great. We have made full enhancements to our F&B throughout the building, and that's been a fun one for us, changing our food menus. We have a new chef in our building. So really highlighting the F&B experiences.
So what are you eating these days when you go to the stadium?
Let me tell you, as we are in DC, our crab cakes.
Are they killer?
They're killer.
I don't know. I'm 38 years old. I wasn't into crab cakes until I was 37. Like, I just had no interest in this. And it's like anytime I'm at a restaurant, I'm like, I got to try the crab cakes.
Yes, crab cakes are stellar, top notch to me. I don't want to argue about it. It's just they're just really great. So that's one. Other thing I'm excited about, we have a new lounge coming. So we sold the naming rights to our Blue Halo Lounge, which will be opening right around Club World Cup time. I love this. It's a new premium space. I've had my eye on this space since the day I walked in that stadium. And I said, oh, we're going to build something out of this. And we have finally sold it to a partner last year. We've been working on the build, and it'll be completed here in a few weeks. So a brand new premium space coming to Audi Field, which we're super excited about.
Awesome.
And another fun one, I think it went live earlier today. We actually just signed a new partnership with a group called Sequel. And Sequel is a feminine products company. So for being a men's sports team, in partnership with DC Power, who is our women's team, we were able to get a partnership with them. And this partnership focuses on feminine hygiene. They'll be putting products throughout our stadium. And so just a really unique partnership, specifically as a male-led sports team, to do something very different.
That's really cool. How do you just create a culture that even thinks that way, comes up with new ideas?
Yeah. I think it helps that more close to like 50% of our office are women. So that definitely helps.
Is it that many?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're a heavy women organization. I think we're close to, if we're not at 50, we're right under 50% women. I think that goes back to the ideation when you talk about legacy. It's creating opportunities for women in the workplace and hiring great people to do it. And so for them to come in, and I remember having the conversation with the young woman who did the deal, and she was like, would we do something like this? I said, absolutely. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, yes, go figure it out. Like, let's make a deal with them and let's bring it into the stadium. And so I think having mindsets of all different backgrounds, I think really helps us to be creative in that way.
I was even looking back as we're kind of preparing for today, like since you've joined, the growth of the business has just been skyrocketing. Now, I know you'll be the first one to say it's not just me, it's the team that you've built and everyone coming together. What do you think is the secret potion to like that success? Like if you were to drum it down to like one thing, what is it? Is it the right people in the right roles, creating the right ideas? Is it that coupled with other things going on? Like what do you think is that?
I think part of it is understanding the mission and opportunity. I think and so it goes to people and roles, but like for them to actually understand the mission and opportunity in front of them and grasp it. We knew where this organization was when I came in. And to be able to have people actually understand what it means for the opportunity to create success, for the opportunity to walk into one of the first franchises in Major League Soccer and change it and evolve it and see what was in front of them and to believe in that. And then you marry it with getting the right people.
Yeah.
It starts to come together. And that's how I think it is. It was like, oh, this is possible that all of us could walk away from this one day with a feather in our cap.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me. It wasn't just ownership, right? It was everybody at the table. And that's where us as leaders had the opportunity to uplift everybody at the table and them knowing that this was going to be a special moment in their career to create this change. And I feel like that has been one of the things that's really kept people going. They see it. They see what's possible.
Yeah, and there's so much data out there. Like Simon Sinek has this book that talks about like the 3 circles.
I love his books.
He talks like the best sales organizations always start with why and then how and what. Not necessarily, okay, what are we selling? It's, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? How are we going to do it? And then like, okay, what needs to happen to make that reality? And I feel like that's exactly what you've been doing. And obviously it's been showing because you guys have been crushing it.
When I first came to DC United, I remember, this is before I actually like came to the front office. I remember doing download meetings with each leader. And some of them lasted like an hour to 2 hours. And it was just hearing them on everything that they had thought, like what was going good, what was going bad. And, you know, sometimes people get in those calls and they're like, oh, I was about to say a bad word, but like, it's not one of those sessions where they're just like clamoring. It was like, it went from tell me what's going on to tell me how you think we can fix it. Right. And that was where we started. And that's where we started our foundation. And once I started to understand that and we started to figure out, okay, how do we start to apply it? And where do we get some of those wins? That's when it started to come together, which is where we formed like, all right, we're on a mission and we're in it together.
I was just going to say another way of wording what you were just saying, like, don't bring me a problem unless you're also bringing me solutions for that problem. I love that approach.
And if you don't know how to solve it, be willing to work with us to help find a solution, right? Because they may not have the exact answer, but they're like, I'm not going to just complain about it. I know there's a solve. Let's dig together.
What would you say is the biggest learning that you took from Sparks and leading that organization to DC United?
I think when I was at the Sparks, one of the things that role taught me is that I was no longer just a leader of departments. I became a leader of an organization, which made me move into a different mindset on strategy, a different mindset on how to position and think through something holistically. And I think when I went into, because I transitioned in that role from Sparks. So I think when I came into DC United, I came in with that mindset from the very beginning. You know, as you progress in your career, you lead departments. And when you switch out of that, it's a different mindset. And when I came into DC United, I came in there knowing I had to do this in a different way. I had to think very holistically, be strategic in my thought process, and help move the business forward.
Do you also see it from your perspective that, I don't know, it came to my mind when you said you're not leading departments, but in a way you're kind of leading movements in a sense, because you've talked about this entire interview, how much community means to you, how much making impact on people and the people around you. Obviously, soccer is a global sport that has major impact, but it seems like you lead with like, let's have this product and an MLS team or a WNBA team or a G League team be a movement that is more than just basketball or more than just football. Is that a fair, calculation of how you lead?
I think that's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
When you create movement, you create change. And when you create change, you drive the business. And we talked about a little bit about like revenue and things like that. All that comes into play with it. You think about some of the biggest brands because they had a movement behind them, right? When we want to create change in this world and we want to see things change in our communities, there's movement that comes behind that. And so I feel like that's the same position I do take when it comes to this, is that this is about a movement and our presence matters. It's why I show up in a lot of different places and do that. I encourage my team to do that. Why we have reestablished our foundation and our community efforts and built them back up. And we've seen so much success in that. All those are part of the movement that drive us forward. And they're the ones that drive the success for us.
Who are a couple of people who had a big impact on your career? Because you wouldn't be sitting in the seat that you're in today if you didn't have advocates and mentors and great bosses along the way.
I've had great leaders. So Todd DeMoss, who's been at the WNBA league office for like 20 plus years, was my very first boss. He was the one that told me I needed to learn how to sell. Right. And that was back in the G League days. He was like, if you don't do anything else, you got to learn how to sell in this business. My second one, Laura Mae Davina, she is the one that got me to move to Bakersfield, California. And I give them one-liners, each of them, because they all taught me different things. My one-liner from Laura Mae was step out on faith. Right. I moved across the country, didn't have much, my 2 bags, and lived in her house until I got my own place.
Stop. You lived in your boss's house?
I lived in my boss's basement.
Come on.
I lived in my boss's basement for like 8 months. Yeah. I moved to Bakersfield, California. I had 2 bags of my clothes. I had some money saved up from when I worked at a sneaker store. And she was like, just take a leap of faith with me. And I think about that often, had I not. Right. And so that leap of faith changed my life. If I didn't move there, not saying I wouldn't be in this, but in the same pathway, maybe not. And then I think about Christine Simmons, who was my boss at the Sparks. And hers for me was, what do we always say? Hers was really about resilience and excellence, right? And how you walk in the room and own it. Like, be resilient, build an excellence, walk in that room and you own it. No matter how you feel that day, what's going on, you walk in the room and own it. And so I say those 3 as just key things. And they're like little one-liners, but they're things I definitely live by. Whether it's taking a job in a different place, I'm like, take the leap of faith, you'll be okay, right? Sell. It's the foundation of this. Whether I'm selling to a client, whether I'm selling a concept back internally or up, do that. Don't lose your sales mentality, right? And then own it. Like, walk in there, you own this room. You do this. Like, be resilient and live in your excellence. And so I say those things because there was lots they taught me, but those high-level moments with them are part of the pattern of how I try to succeed now.
Walk in a room and own it. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, people are drawn to confident people, aren't they? And there's a balance between confidence and arrogance. But if you're going to go get a surgery or do a big remodel on your house, the last thing you want is someone to be like, yeah, I could probably do it.
Yeah.
It's not something you want.
Yeah.
You want someone who comes in and goes, hey, I've taken care of this before. Or I haven't, but I've got a pathway to get there. And let me tell you how I'm going to get there.
Exactly.
Confidence matters. How do you teach someone to build confidence? How did you build your confidence in that chapter of life?
Confidence comes from knowing. And what I mean by this is I say knowing, but like, I actually study before I walk in the room. right? Like I'm gonna walk in the room and I'm gonna be prepared. So I would say preparation is part of that. Instead of knowing, I would say preparation. Yeah. So preparation is part of walking in that room, right? So if I'm walking in the room, I'm prepared to walk in the room, which means I know who I'm walking in the room to see. I know and have some foundational things about what's actually happening. And I know I can add value. And that takes time, right? And I tell people this often, every idea I walk in a room with, I don't expect it to always be the win, right? But I'm going to keep shooting my shot, as we talked about earlier, and I keep trying. And so I think that comes over time, right? You have to just do some things that are a little bit uncomfortable. And still to this day, I may have to go to an event and I'm just like, oh, I'm just not in the mood, right? But I have got to just pause and be like, well, what do I want to get out of this? There's a reason I'm here. If I don't take advantage of that opportunity, that's on me for a lost opportunity. Right? I didn't do that. And that's where we have to make those decisions that, yes, even in being in an uncomfortable moment where you may not know the people in the room, like, what would you like to get out of it? Because what you don't want to do is go home and lay your head down on the pillow and then be like, I wish I would have. I should have done this. And I've learned over time, I don't like going to sleep at night like that. And so now I really try my best to not have, I wish I should, I could have type moments. And I just go out there and give it my all.
Yeah, I love that. It's the same advice I give to people when they interview for jobs. So I'll tell them ahead of time, I don't want you afterwards coming back and saying, I wish they would have asked me this question. I say they did. They just didn't know they were supposed to. So find a way to bring that story out in the interview or ask them a question. Say, hey, how do you see this role collaborating cross-departmentally? They give an answer. So interesting. Let me tell you how I collaborate cross-department, right? You can ask a question that then sets you up to give yourself an answer to the question that you wanted because they've asked you to come interview. They're not suggesting that they have all the perfect questions to get there. You might know part of what they need to get to. And if it wasn't on your resume and if the question doesn't come up, you still need to find a way to bring that into the story.
Absolutely.
Preparation matters.
Yes, like you have to. And I agree with you because I remember having those moments where I always felt like I left something behind. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore, right? I'm going to give it my all every single time. And like, you feel more whole. And I think that is then when you become more confident and like you walk in that room and you handle it differently because you know you're not going to leave out wishing you would have.
Danita, a lot of our audience are 1 or 2 steps removed from being in a president or a CEO job. That's the most competitive interviews ever get because you're going against other high performers, highly accomplished achievers. What advice would you have for a chief legal officer, a CFO, an SVP of marketing to help them differentiate themselves for an opportunity to step into a president job, knowing that they're going to be competing against sitting presidents for that job or their colleagues who are completely qualified and talented as well?
I think you need to understand how you add value, right? And not only understand how you add value, but how you tell the story of how you add value. Specifically, like when you're crossing over, because a lot of times what you have to do is you have to be able to tell the through line to the story of why that crossover works and how you can lead an organization. If you cannot tell that story well, that is where it becomes harder. And the reason why I believe it becomes harder is because sometimes your own storytelling then makes it make sense for that person in the hiring seat. And if you can't do that, if you can't evolve that, then they're going to miss it too because you're expecting them to connect the dots. They can't connect that dot necessarily all the time, specifically when you're competing against sitting presidents, right? But if you can't actually connect the dot for them and you expect them to do it on their own, you're going to miss on the opportunity. And so my encouragement is being able to actually be able to tell the story of how you have impact. And then think about in your current role, when you look at the overall of a president seat, where you can really help to, at the end of the day, we move these businesses forward. How does it drive the business forward? And that also comes down to people and other things of that nature, like whether it's your people skills, whether it's your revenue generation skills, your negotiating skills, bring that to the forefront to then give them a holistic story of how it works.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how good you are technically at a job. If you can't communicate that well, or you can't speak with vision and insight and enthusiasm, You're not going to bring people on the journey with you.
Exactly.
And that's not necessarily a skill set. that people constantly develop. It's where I spend a lot of time reading these days, like Charles Duhigg, Super Communicators, and just other storytelling types of books, because you're trying to engage and connect with an audience. They don't necessarily engage and connect the same way you do. And so how do you tell your story differently? And what are they looking for? And what type of data matters and what doesn't? It's good advice.
Yeah, because, people think, it goes back to what we say, like, it's not just the points on your resume, it's how you got there. And if you can then talk through how you're going to get an organization there, that really helps.
So 7 questions we ask everybody, our 7 question blitz. What sports event have you never been to that you would love to attend?
I've never been to Wimbledon, and I think it would be a lot of fun.
You need to do that one.
Yes, on the list.
It is one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
Yeah.
I've only been once. I think I'm going again this summer.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
It's amazing.
That's on my list.
What are 3 people, living or historical, that you would want to go golfing with? Or whatever sport or leisure activity you would prefer if it's not golf.
I mean, we're definitely going to take Barack Obama golfing, hands down, because I need to learn. You know who I would love? Like Serena Williams. I just think I'm interested in what she's doing, not only what she's done professionally, but I'm interested in how she's developing this whole sports business of hers and what they're doing in that standpoint. And for fun, and I know they're not famous, but I'd probably take my mom along with me. And reason being is because I think she would get a complete kick out of it. One, she can't play golf, but I think she would just have a good time driving the car and just love the absolute experience of it all. So add a little family to the mix. Yeah.
That's half the fun of going golfing. It's just driving the cart around.
Exactly.
Matt was telling me that the other day for his birthday that he had an experience where he played on a course where you have to have a caddy. So he didn't get to do driving, which is the reason I go golfing.
There's a walking only course with a caddy.
There you go.
I love that. What is your favorite sports memory of your life?
2016 WNBA championship. Neko Gumake last second of the game tips it in. We beat Minnesota. The Minnesota crowd goes quiet. We go loud because we're like all in the Sparks section together. Love.
Epic.
Never forget it.
Epic.
I can feel myself in the moment still to this day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Give me goosebumps a little bit. Just golly, you set that story up really well. What is something about you most people don't know?
If you're close to me, you know, because you've probably benefited from it, but I absolutely love to cook.
What's your favorite dish? Like, what's your go-to dish?
My lamb is really good.
Stop. How do you make it?
I do some great, I'll grill some lamb. It's really good with like rosemary. I salt it perfectly. And I make a balsamic glaze to go along with it that you could dip it in. It's pretty heavenly.
I love that.
Did you get, like, is this been in a family thing, or is this something you naturally picked up?
It was a survival thing. It was, when I started moving around for work so much, I was like, I got to figure out how to cook. I live too far away from my family. And I was like, I need to figure this out. And it became one of my favorite things.
You can only have Panera Bread so many times.
Exactly.
I get it.
Exactly.
I got into sourdough baking recently. I'm about 4 years behind everybody else who got into sourdough baking. And I'm not very good at it, but my kids think it's good.
There you go. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
It's actually quite therapeutic. And my wife, she told me she wanted to get into sourdough for Christmas, and she knows that I bought all this stuff for me. I mean, I've just got a whole collection of things. So you're a scientist when it comes to this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, I need all those tools.
You have to have all the tools. My kitchen tools are very critical.
Yeah, absolutely they are.
I also think I'm a barista, but that's another story.
There's good coffee shops on this street corner. You got to go afterwards. Yeah. What is your professional pet peeve? What just irks you in the office?
Lack of self-awareness. Professional pet peeve. Like, you got to be self-aware. Got to have some self-awareness to yourself. I think that's absolutely important. Yeah.
And if you weren't in your current role and you can't choose sports, what would be your dream job?
I think this is still in my fantasy of retirement. I would have, as you can tell, I've thought about this before. I would probably have like some either like boutique hotels or bed and breakfasts or things like that I would own, curate like all these little experiences for. So it'd be like a combination of, yes, of what I do now, non-sport, but like with the food, the wine, the experiences, but like whether it's like a bed and breakfast or like hotel type of industry, I would own.
Was there a core memory of you traveling and going to a boutique hotel or bed and breakfast that like sparked this? And if so, we'd love to know where so we can put it on our list.
I would say, I'm trying to think of such a, but I love hotel stays, period. Like, I'm a hotel woman. Like, I love a good hotel. I can't remember. I stayed at this smaller hotel in London recently, like a year or so ago. I'll have to give you guys the name of it. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. And I always like boutique hotels, so I always try to find them. But it was like a boutique hotel in like central London that I stayed at, and I can't recall the name of it. But I thought it was gorgeous. The whole setup was beautiful. And they had like little jazz playing downstairs. It was just a complete win.
I'm the same as you with that. One of our retirement job would be to run bed and breakfast. We love it. My wife operates 4 Airbnbs.
See?
We love it as a family. When I travel, I often will look for those boutique types. Can't always do that for work, but personally. I stayed at a cool hotel in Austin recently. It's the Auberge Collection, which the Friedkin family owns. So they have Everton and AS Roma and numerous high-end hotels. And I walked in and there was a perfect amount of coffee already ground next to a French press, next to a kettle that was set to the right temperature. And I'm like, ooh, I get to make my own coffee today.
It's the details, right? It's all in the details.
For sure. And like those things matter. I will ask anytime at a nice hotel when it comes coffee time, like, do you just press a button in the back? If so, like, I'll just go to a coffee shop down the street. Or do you actually make it?
Exactly.
Do you care enough about these details?
Exactly. It's all in the, and like the hotel experience just makes you feel good. Like, it's like you don't have to think about it and you walk in, it's just like,
They give you the cold towel, glass of champagne.
all the things.
Good views. Yeah.
Yeah, good views. And it has to smell great.
The Edition Hotel smell. Have you smelled that?
Yes.
That is the best smell in the world.
When my wife and I first stayed at the New York Edition, actually, we did a staycation there, and it smelled so good. I had to like go to the front desk and be like, "Do you guys sell the diffuser?" Or
I bought the laundry pods recently. And I was like, this is a little too extreme. Like, no, I love it.
They're like, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Every once in a while I get a hug and someone's like, you smell like a hotel lobby, and thank you.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Yep.
My last one for you. Next time we're in DC, where do we need to eat?
We're gonna do a tour of food though. So we're gonna make it through.
that.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna make it through the night. So I'm gonna take
Like
you
a
on
progressive dinner type
Yeah,
of situation.
I'm more of a
I love
progressive
that.
dinner. So we could start lightly at like Cafe Rig, which is downtown. I love their fries, glass of wine, something there. Then we're definitely going to Osteria Moza, which they just opened. They had one in LA. They just opened one in Georgetown.
I just took my daughter there.
Did you go in Georgetown?
Yes, and the tiramisu is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Their focaccia
Yes.
is one of
It's
my
for the
favorite things
focaccia.
on the planet.
Yeah.
I love that place.
Yes. That place is absolutely amazing. So I would go there. They also
When Matt moved away from me in LA, I took him to one of Chef Nancy Silverton's restaurants. We went to
Yes.
Key Spaka together. So that's
Oh,
her
right.
other restaurant.
Oh, wow.
That was his going away present.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Key Spock is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would probably do that, and then they actually have an amazing dessert that's off menu right now. It comes back in the fall. They're just like,
What is it?
It's like a coconut vanilla bean gelato pie or some. It is probably one of the best desserts I've ever had in my
Yeah.
life.
The Budino is one of the best
Yeah.
desserts I've had in my life there too.
Yeah, so Osteria for sure.
Okay, we trust you with food. Keep
Yeah.
going.
And then I would say my nightcap. Typically, I would go. I'm trying to think, because you got to have like the post drink. I would probably say, I keep it simple. I love like the Pendry rooftop, just because you get views of the city for like a nightcap to close out. And they have a really good old fashioned, and they have like the fire pits outside, and you oversee the water, and you can close out your night there.
When I was just there, we went to Love Makoto as well. Have you done Love Makoto
I
yet?
have not been there. It's on my list. You know where else? You know what I forgot, which is really good? I finally went to Dogon.
Yeah, I haven't
Yes. It's inside the Salamander Hotel. That is actually, I would go from Osterio to Dogon and just have some light affairs there of whatever they want to offer at the table. It's phenomenal.
been. The food scene in DC is awesome.
Yeah. It's grown a lot. It's grown a lot, specifically over the last couple of years.
Well, Danita, so much fun spending time
This
with
is
you.
great.
Thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.